Now, if I were to guess, I would say there's a good chance you're probably already using AI for your ad creatives. Maybe Claude, Midjourney, Arcads, Nano Banana, or even some of these automation tools like N8N and Gumloop. But if you're being honest with yourself, the process still feels quite fragmented. You've got different tools that work quite well, but they only work well in isolation. You've got manual handoffs everywhere, and all of your different team members doing different things in 10 different ways. So, in other words, you have the pieces, but you don't have the workflows that connect all of them together. Now, in this video today, I am going to show you the 3 AI creative workflows that actually matter. In other words, the ones that turn disconnected, individual, isolated tools into an AI creative system that runs effectively. Now, these are the exact same workflows that we install for brands spending anywhere from $50K a month on ads all the way up to over $10 million a month on their paid ads. So without further ado, I'm going to dive into my screen and I will show you exactly what these workflows look like. So then, as you can see here, we have 3 main workflows. We have the steal your competitor ads, we have the researched brief, and then we have the performance feedback loop. So to summarize these, and then I will dive into each of them individually, the steal your competitor ad workflow is a more complex workflow, but basically what this does is it will go ahead and watch to see which ads your competitors are running. It will use AI to extract the patterns behind what made those workflows those ads rather effective, and then it will recreate them using Nano Banana for your specific ads. The research to brief campaign is something that is more ideally tied for agencies or, any brand basically that has complex research processes. So what this will do is it will collate onboarding responses, as I said, predominantly for agency clients, and then it will go ahead and turn their onboarding responses into research, into a brief, and then copy to hand off to your design team or editors or whoever it may be. And then finally, we have the performance feedback loop. This really is as it sounds. It will collect data from your campaigns, whether that's through your literal meta ads dashboard, whether it's through third-party platforms like Triple Whale or wherever it may be, and then it will feed that back into the creation of the next set of ads based on how effective your campaigns were. So it will take the best ads and it will kind of get insights as to why they were effective and also do the same for the worst. But let's dive into these in a bit more detail. So first of all, we have the steal your competitor ad workflow. Now, as I said, this is a slightly complicated one, so it's been broken up into 3 main sections. Section 1 is the watcher. So to begin this, we have a weekly scheduled trigger. As it sounds, every single week on any day that you set this to, it will trigger this entire workflow. What this will first of all do is it will configure settings. So what you need to do is provide the workflow with the page IDs of your competitor's meta ad library or Google or wherever you prefer to do so with. Then we have a platform called Scrape Creators AI and their API rather. What this will do is it will pull the Facebook ad library data from those competitor ads. Then it will calculate the effectiveness. Now we have a very simple Google Sheet formula in place to do this. So we have the amount of days that the ad has been running for, plus the number of variations that have been created of that ad. Obviously, if an ad has been running for a long time and there have been multiple variations generated of that ad, then we can discern that there is a high likelihood that this ad is quite effective. Then also we will read existing ads from Google Sheets. So predominantly this is going to be used by people that have done this process before. Obviously not as relevant when you're doing this for the first time, but we have this in place so that when you go and use this going forward, it will read existing ads to ensure that it's not duplicating this process and to basically ensure that it's not running the analysis on an ad that you have already done before. Then it's just going to identify whether that is a new or changed ad, obviously, like I said, and assuming it is not, what it will do is it will filter. So if it scores above that certain threshold that we stipulate based on that formula, obviously we have a threshold in place. You can put that threshold or whatever you like, but we have a certain threshold in place just to ensure that we are only filtering through ads that score high enough in terms of how long they've been running for and how many variations have been made. Then in this first section, it will round off by simply updating that Google tracking sheet with the data from that analyzed ad. Then moving into section 2, this is what we call the Psychologist, and it will begin by triggering the workflow from that specific first workflow. So it will have a webhook trigger from workflow 1. Then what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to prepare the image URL. Now, a quick notice here and kind of like caveat is that there are multiple different ways of doing this. What we are essentially doing is we are collating the data from the ad we are scraping. Now, there are two obviously different types. It can be an image or it can be a video format. In terms of how we do this, it applies for both. And again, in terms of the image here, we are preparing the URL. We can also just prepare a download of the actual image itself. And likewise for video, this can just be an MP4 file, if not the URL. Then we build a Gemini request and we use Gemini 3 Pro Vision Analysis to do the actual analysis on the piece of content. Then using Claude, we ask Claude to do an analysis on what Gemini has extracted from those ads. We pass any specific marketing patterns that we have seen. So really to reiterate here, we are using Gemini to do an analysis in terms of what's actually happening in the content. Then we are asking Claude to basically find winning patterns from that analysis that Gemini has given us. And then finally, we just update the Google Sheet with the analysis that we have run. So then the third section is the generator. Again, we just have a webhook trigger from Workflow 2 to begin this. We start off by loading brand guidelines. Obviously, really, really important here. Your colors, your fonts, your tone of voice, any forbidden words, any specific things that you don't want included in your ads. We merge that brand guideline data with the psychological analysis that Gemini and Claude have completed, which we use to then generate ad concepts using Claude. After we have generated those concepts, Claude will also build you the prompts to generate images from this. Again, you can tailor this if you would like to use Claude to generate you scripts for Arcads or HeyGen or any other platform, Sora, VO3, whatever it may be. And then we have connected the Nano Banana Pro API. And what this is going to do is just use that API to generate images based on those prompts. And yes, incorporating your brand rules here and your tone of voice as well. So then after that, we pass the image response. So we just want to check what the response looks like and obviously how good it is. We want to check the result and see if it's effective. Assuming it is a success, we will go ahead and resize that image for different formats. Again, you can customize this to whichever formats that you need. We just use 3 of the most standard ones. We use the metadata to generate a file name. So in terms of just the naming convention to easily access this going forward, and then we upload this to Google Drive. Very, very simple in terms of what this looks like. In terms of at the end here, obviously for this example, check image result, we have the next step, assuming it is a success. But if it's not a success, if the image result or the video result, if you are generating video, is not what you would like it to look like, it doesn't actually end up working well, all you would simply need to do is connect this back to this stage here, the API, whether it's Nano Banana or whether it's any video platform you are using, to just basically iterate on this. Now, most of these tools give you the ability to iterate, so you would have the output, and then you can reprompt it based on what you would like it to improve on. So that wraps up the first workflow, the process that allows you to steal your competitor ads. So then second of all, we have the research to brief process. Now, like I said, and this is something that is extremely effective and beneficial predominantly for agencies who have clients that they need to automate processes within their flow to speed up that workflow. However, of course, can still also be used very effectively for brands, for e-com brands, for any other type of product too. You would just kind of need to discern which parts you need to remove, which parts you need to add. And yeah, it's going to be fairly obvious in terms of where that is. So again, we have multiple sections here. The first section is the onboarding, and I will run through this using the example of it being an agency. So obviously, every agency is going to have different workflows, but pretty standardized. There's going to be 3 main things that you have. You're going to have the intake form, onboarding form, whatever you want to call it, the information that the client has given you about their product. You are also going to have details on their product, their service, their offer, whatever it may be. And you are also going to potentially have some of their existing creative assets, whether that's winning ads, winning copy, whatever it may be. Of course, in that form, they're going to be sharing with you their business model, their target audience, their pain points, objections their customers have, reviews, whatever it may be. All of these 3 things will then feed into a brand context document. And what you will get from this in this first section is the central context hub from which you would refer from going forward. So then section 2 is the research synthesis. So with this, what we are trying to do is incorporate as much different pieces of research from the market as we possibly can, and then synthesizing that with the data that we have. So there are 4 main things that we do here. Messaging analysis from their competitors, review mining, social listening, and Reddit scraper. Now, obviously, Reddit scraper is as it sounds. You can have something just using Amplify here to go ahead and scrape Reddit, or you can just use something like Reddit Answers if you would prefer to keep things more manual and just find data on what people are saying and really just try and understand the linguistics behind what your customers are saying, or obviously your clients. Social listening refers to social media. So again, you can have a very simple Apify automation here that just goes and scrapes threads on Twitter or Instagram, comments on YouTube, whatever it may be, to just again understand where the social landscape lies and how that really relates back to your client's product or service or whatever it may be. Then we have review mining, again, another simple scraper that you would set up here, which you can use across Trustpilot, across Amazon, basically wherever, just to understand what reviews your customers are saying. And again, all of these things are so important, because really what you want to go ahead and do is try and extract as much of that exact language that your customers are using as possible. And then an analysis of your competitor messaging. So what kind of messaging, what copy are your competitors using that is evidently effective? Again, using that same formula as the first workflow. Obviously you want to be analyzing ads that have been running for a long time, ideally, because therefore by default they are likely effective. So then all of those four things are going to combine into a Claude analysis, where you are going to be prompting Claude to extract patterns from those four things. Then from that, you are going to extract the exact customer language that your customers use. Of course, this is going to be across the reviews, across the social listening, across what people are saying on Reddit, and so forth and so forth. It's also going to extract angle opportunities and hook patterns, and it's going to combine this into a document called research synthesis. So you get full details on basically all of the information that you need across your target market. Then we have section 3, which is a very short and simple section. I realize I've actually duplicated build concept matrix here. Actually, it's really a lot simpler than this. It just goes straight from this into the Claude stage. But really what you do is you define the variables. Of course, this does vary for different workflows and different agencies, but you just want to go ahead and outline what it is you would actually like to include in your brief, whether that is awareness levels, whether that's personas, whether that's emotional angles, whatever it may be. You would then automate this to build a concept matrix for you. So it's going to be a matrix of different concepts based on those variables, personas, awareness levels, and so forth. Then that's going to go into Claude, and Claude is going to generate you a bunch of different briefs that you can potentially use that are going to go into a brief library for you, which then of course feeds into section 4. So finally, the copy generation stage, you're going to be selecting a brief from the library. Again, there are two different ways of doing this. You can, of course, keep it manual in terms of you would go into the library and you can pick the brief that you think looks the best, or you can have a simple threshold in place where, again, you would have a formula which is going to be calculating each brief and its likelihood of effectiveness, and it will automatically select the best rated brief. Then on top of that, that is going to go into the next stage, which is Claude generating scripts. But you're also going to pull in the data from the outputs from the previous sections. So the central context hub from section 1, because of course, this is all of the information about your specific client or brand if it's not an agency. And then also in section 2, which is the research synthesis, where you have that document from all of the research that you have done. So those two combined with the brief is going to come in and compile to Claude in order to generate scripts. Of course, there are multiple different types of scripts you can generate here. It can be UGC, email, landing page copy, VSL scripts, static ad copy, whatever it may be. You can tweak this to whatever works best for you. Then this is going to go into the next stage, which is the variation generator, where you're going to be getting variations of VSL scripts, UGC scripts, whatever it may be. We select this to generate 35 versions per concept. Ultimately, again, you can choose whichever number is most relevant. And then finally, this will finish by providing you a creative asset that you can put into your queue, ready for your designer to start designing or creators to start creating, and whatever it may be. So that wraps up the second workflow, the research to brief. And then finally, we have the performance feedback loop, as you can see here. So in terms of what this looks like, there are 5 potential different inputs here. Of course, you can, again, customize this to your business, to which tools you use. But the important thing here is that we are trying to extract data from your ads. There are multiple different ways you can do this. You can do this with the Foreplay API. You can do this with the Motion API or Triple Whale, Meta Ads, or Google Sheets export. Now, of course, these serve slightly different purposes. For example, Triple Whale is effective if you are using that to actually analyze your ads. If you don't use Triple Whale, you can use the Meta Ads API, or you can just go into your Meta Ads dashboard, export a CSV file, upload that into Google Sheets, and then Google Sheets will connect to this workflow. Foreplay, Motion, there are other third-party available tools as well, but these are the 2 most common in terms of extracting data from either your ads or from your competitor ad library too. Very, very effective. But basically, all of these, again, you don't have to use all of these, but The ones that you do use, what these will do is they will pull into the next stage, which is essentially pulling your performance data. We're going to be looking to extract patterns like your spend, the impressions, CTR, CPA, ROAS, again, fully customizable. So any relevant specific metrics that you have for your business, this is where you can go ahead and filter these. The next stage, what it's going to do is it's going to segment those by performance. So it's going to be looking at the ads and it's going to be looking at the winners, which is the top 10%. It's going to be looking at the losers, which is the bottom 20%. And it's also going to be pulling out what's called the middle performers, not really in either category. So for the winners, it's going to be pulling a workflow inside of Claude, which is going to be doing analysis of those winners. It's also going to try and understand why that was effective. So it's going to pull patterns in terms of the hooks that were used, in terms of the visuals, in terms of the offer, and it's going to extract all of those patterns and put that into a winning pattern database that you can reference going forward. For the losers, it's going to do the same. Claude is going to analyze why did these ads fail. It's going to do a failure analysis, and then it's going to build a anti-pattern database. So similarly, a pattern, but a database rather, but of this time, patterns that you should avoid. Both of these things are going to compile into a weekly insights report. So every single week, you will get a report delivered into Slack or WhatsApp or ClickUp or wherever you communicate in terms of your internal workflow. And it's going to be sharing that data with you so you understand the winning patterns and, of course, the losing patterns. This is going to create what's called an insight archive. So you're going to be getting all of these insights from that report. Of course, really, really effective here because this compounds and gets better over time so that the system gets smarter and it compounds and you leverage that compounding effect. Then going forward, if you would like to understand what's working and what to stop, you can run that competitor analysis again and just repeat this process. Or alternatively, if you would like to incorporate the winning patterns, you can go ahead and use Workflow 2, which will connect to this. You can use Gumloop or N8N to build what's called subflows. This is what we do. We have Workflow 2 as a subflow and we connect it into this one. It will run the brief generation. It will create you new briefs. And then you can, of course, start with the creative production. But the important thing here is that after the creative production, you will have new creative, which will feed into your active campaigns. You will have live ads, Meta, Google, TikTok, YouTube, wherever it may be. You will have live ads in the market. And then this will also connect back to the stage where we are pulling the performance data. Because importantly, of course, we want to understand how those campaigns are actually performing. The whole point of this is that it generates as titled a feedback loop. So we're getting more data, we're getting more feedback, and this entire system gets better and better over time. So those right there are the three main workflows. And to recap, we have the competitor intelligence workflow, which shows you exactly what's working and it recreates those winning ads for your brand. The research to brief workflow, which takes you all the way from onboarding to having finished ready to use scripts without any need for manual input. And then finally, the performance feedback loop, which takes everything that's winning from your existing ads and of course as well everything that's losing and then feeds that data back into everything else. Now when these systems connect together, you will no longer have isolated AI tools that work individually in that very fragmented process. Instead, you will have a complete AI creative system. And with that in mind, if you're a business owner spending over $50,000 a month on ads, or you run an agency and your clients spend that amount, and you would like these exact workflows and tons more installed for your business or for your clients, then the link will be in the description below this video to learn more about what that looks like and to book in a call with me and my team so you can understand how we would do that specific for your business. But as always, I hope you found this video valuable. I appreciate you watching and I will see you in the next one.